Square come and speak to us, and we've been well fed, and it's been well fed in every way actually, and it's really good. So thank you very much for letting me be part of that. I do appreciate it. Tonight we have got "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." That's our beatitude. Last week, if you were here, we defined meekness as the quality or the state of being meek, a mild, moderate, humble or submissive quality. So it's gentle, it's releasing, it's about letting others have a go. Now, I was interested that Kate at the beginning said that she finds meekness an odd one, because I don't think she's the only one who finds it quite hard to work out about meekness. I'm getting a few nods around the room. Certainly when I've spoken about this before, this is the one that lots of people pick out and say, I don't really get this one, I don't really understand this one, and worried about what it means to their life. So there's lots of misconceptions about it. Some put it down to having poor self-esteem. So, for example, those with high self-esteem can't see the point of meekness when there are games to be won, successes to be had, and great ambition for a successful life. Being meek is boring. It's for losers, those with low self-esteem. Some people think meekness means letting other people take advantage of you, always saying yes into taking the serving role. However, it is much deeper than that. If we just look at the life of Jesus, we see it. What we see in the life of Jesus is a flexibility that comes from true humility, because humility and meekness are linked together. From being meek, Jesus did live as a servant and pour out his life for others, but he also let others serve and care for him. He asked for a drink of water from a woman from a culture his own people looked down on. He depended on his friends for funds, food and shelter as he travelled about. He even let a woman serve him in an embarrassing yet empowering moment when she washed and poured perfume over his feet. Jesus, washing his disciples' feet, is often seen as an incredible act of humility. The great teacher taking up the towel and the basin, doing the work of a lowest slave. So in Jesus, we see someone who could serve and take on the humble role, but also he could receive people's humble acts. He could serve and he could receive. And there was real integrity to the way he did it. He served others and let others serve him. Meekness is like a relationship word. When we let others serve, as we also serve, we work hard, but also we let others work hard. We don't do everything, we let others have a go. We don't just sit back, we get up and do something. If all of us served, something would be wrong. If all of us received, something would also be wrong. So the meekness we're talking about, I think, is a really beautiful thing. It's about receiving love, and it's about giving love. It's like sort of the breath of life, if you like. We serve and we breathe and we let others serve us. And that's the Jesus model. And today we're going to go deeper into meekness, and we're going to be getting our deeper wisdom from the letter of James, and that's found near the very end of the Bible. And in this letter, he connects meekness to wisdom. What James is saying is, allow the way of meekness to shape you. That is the wise way, the best way to live your life. So I'm going to use the contemporary English version. It's going to go on the screen, and it's headed Wisdom from Above. So this is deep wisdom James is trying to teach us. He didn't write the Wisdom from Above. Somebody who read the Bible and thought, well, this next paragraph can be entitled that, but it's not a bad thing to say. So verse 13, are any of you wise or sensible? Then show it by living right, and by being humble. Start again. Then show it by living right and being humble and wise in everything you do. But if your heart is full of bitter jealousy and selfishness, don't brag or lie to cover up the truth. That kind of wisdom doesn't come from above. It's earthly and selfish, and it comes from the devil himself. Whenever people are jealous or selfish, they cause trouble and do all sorts of cruel things. But the wisdom that comes from above leads us to be pure, friendly, gentle, sensible, kind, helpful, genuine, and sincere. When peacemakers plant seeds of peace, they will harvest justice. So verse 13 basically tells us a wise and sensible way to live your life is to live your lives right and to live your lives humbly. Just an aside word here. The word which is used for right, to live your words right, could just as have easily been translated justly. Live your lives justly. So live your lives with an eye on justice. In fact, in the Bible, you can interchange the words justice and righteousness all the way through, because they often mean the same things, and it's quite hard, particularly in Hebrew, to translate. Is it righteousness or is it justice? So just when you're reading through and you're wondering, and you've got the word righteousness, try reading justice and see if that makes more sense of it. So righteousness is seen in living a just life, a fair life, a life with an eye on justice and an eye supporting the oppressed. The word for being humble, as we've also mentioned, is the quality of meekness. And helpfully, as James is going through these qualities, he points out what it is, what's the opposite of being humble. So the first thing which is opposite of being humble is harbouring jealousy. That's like being jealous of others and their successes. An example of jealousy is if we're prone to comparing ourselves to others. Does anyone do that? Am I the only one who compares to others? I thought I was the only one, but no, there's a few of you saying you do compare. So that's an example of jealousy. We can either fall into when I look at my next door neighbours, I'm so much better than them, or we might, so that's sort of like jealous superiority, or we could think I'm nowhere near as good as the other person. That person is much better than me. I wish I could be more like them. So we don't see ourselves as loved and valued by God, we see ourselves, we think other people are loved and valued if we've got lower self-esteem. But vice versa, if you think you're better than everyone else, you don't think everyone else is loved by God. So it's a real problem. I think this is an area where we have to, lots of hard work on our inner lives to work out things. This is an area where we struggle sometimes, the area of comparing, or the area of jealousy. And last week's daily habit of stopping a few times a day, we can continue it this week if we found it useful, stopping a few times a day and reminding ourselves that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, could be just the ticket to help us move away from just being in this comparison loop that many of us get on. Another opposite of meekness, which James mentions in the passage, is selfishness. Simply, when we put ourselves first, when we only think of others, when we fail to think of the impact we have on others in behaving the way we do, when we are so unself-aware that we're causing damage, and when we take more for ourselves and leave others to struggle, that is being selfish. Being selfish says, I am more important. Selfishness is a way of living that gives you the slight advantage. Selfishness is the way of being that makes you God rather than seeing the bigger picture. And all of us are prone to this one way or another. I know I am prone to being selfish. I'm sure it's something which all of us live with as well. Self-obsession is a massive thing that can draw us away from the loving, peaceful and healthy life. And James is quite brutal in his description. He links it to evil and the devil, and he says the outcome of living in a jealous and selfish way is one of cruelty and trouble. And so this is where meekness is so important, because if that's the opposite of meekness, meekness is what transforms all of this. I must say, I think we live in a world governed by jealousy and governed by selfishness. We live in a world which is me, 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 and my needs and my destination. And it's very narrow and boring and appalling, that kind of world. A life which spends its time comparing all the time. I am good against them, but I'm not so good against that other person, leads us into mental turmoil. That turmoil and gets us nowhere. We win, but our neighbour doesn't, is a good strategy to base your life on. I'm no good and everyone else is better than me is a depressive and deadly way to live your life. Thankfully, though, James puts some positivity into his thinking, and he gives us some words to think about when it comes to what a meek life looks like. And they're there in verse 17. They're pure, friendly, gentle, sensible, kind, helpful, genuine, and sincere. And I think these are the words which help us to see what meek looks like. And when people see a Christian community, I think these are the words we would love to hear. These are the words we'd love to hear when people are describing what our community is like. So pure, which means basically doing your best, trying to do the right thing, listening and learning, sort of being a lifelong learner, knowing you haven't got all the answers and you've got to grow all the time. It's about embracing others and being open. Friendly means being open and inclusive, easy, welcoming, maybe hospitable and fun as well. And gentle means not forcing, not just getting your own way, but listening, not pushing people into a corner, but going the extra mile so things can happen. And sensible is doing the right thing in the right way with a lot of love. And kind is walking with people through the great stuff in their lives, but also the hard stuff as well. And helpful is doing your best to help make the community you're in be as beautiful as it can be. And genuine means the real deal. You practice what you preach. You're solid. And sincere means you do your best in the best way you can, and you try and help others be the same. And that is meekness. That is what meekness means. That is what we're chasing in this beatitude. It's beautiful, but it's tough too. It means less of me and more of you. It means me letting you be my servant and me also being your servant. A few weeks ago, I sent out an email which was a reflection I'd written about meekness. And in it, I told a story of two monks to illustrate how meekness and living in a way that both Jesus and James in our reading today suggests changes the world. And it was a story told to me when I went to Holy Island with Liz. Was that back in September or October? I can't remember. But a long time ago now, months ago. And the story is was told to us on Holy Island at Lindisfarne, as you may know it. And it was told to us by the warden of the Order of St. Aidan and St. Hilda, which is a new monastic order based on Holy Island. And it's a story of two monks. The first monk, St. Cormac, was charged by his boss monk, shall we call him, Columba, to go and start a new community down at Lindisfarne. And he was charged basically with taking Christianity to this community because they were a pagan community and they hadn't heard the gospel message. St. Cormac was a confident monk and self-assured, and he gladly took the charge, thinking it would be a very straightforward task. So he made the few hundred-mile journey to Lindisfarne, Holy Island, from Scotland to Northumbria, and he arrived rather grandly and looking like he was a top dog. And his message was one of him telling the people how bad they were miserable sinners, and you need to repent, was his message. They were no good, and they needed to be more like him. And you can guess the trip went really badly. St. Cormac failed miserably, and he had to return to the boss monk, Columba, with a tale between his legs. And Columba got all the other monks together, and they had a meeting to talk about this failed mission. It concerned them so much. And during this meeting, another monk suggested that they had failed because they were too rough on the people. The message wasn't right, and their way of speaking it wasn't helpful. And this monk suggested there was a gentler way, and he was Saint Aidan. And Columba, the boss monk, heard what he said and said, "Well, all right then, you give it a go." And so Aidan arrived differently to the island, with a different posture, one of humility. He was prepared to listen. He shared a story of love. He shared about the kingdom of God, where people were included and not excluded. He talked about honour and respect and kindness, and he listened. He entered into people's lives. He set up things, a bit like hospitals, called centres of healing. He started educating the people. He joined in and worked with them and started small business enterprises with them and got them jobs. And the people loved this. Their lives were improved. This was good news. They saw his example and they wanted to join in with the story. And before long, this Druid and pagan community identified as a Christian community. Good news had come to their neighbourhood. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. I hope you see, meekness is about needing each other. We can't do it on our own. It's about inclusion and doing things together. Meekness is not having to charge about and win everything, but it's about it's about taking as many with you and helping them enjoy it all too. Meekness is about listening, joining in, working it out together. Meekness is about handing over control, honouring others, letting others take the important places, letting others take the credit. People sometimes confuse meekness with weakness. Some people often try and humiliate meek people because they don't know what to do with the gentle and simple approach. But the point is missed if this is the case, because meekness changes the world and it is the most powerful thing. But this quiet and gentle quality that we're being encouraged to chase and honour this week, despite its simplicity, is not the easiest. It's not easy if we want to be the boss. It's not easy if we want things done quickly. It's not easy if we want to be in control of our agenda. But it is the posture of Jesus, and it's the posture that changed the world. And it changed the world of Holy Island. We chased after it at Mustard Seed, as it still changes the world. So let's be quiet for a moment. I've got some wondering questions just for us to think about on the screen. If you can put them up, Chris. Brilliant. So I wonder if you've had an example of how the quality of meekness has made life better, maybe for you or a community. I wonder how we can stop comparing ourselves to others all the time. I wonder if we can actually do that. I wonder why people find this quality of meekness so difficult. I wonder why jealousy is so dangerous. I wonder what would happen if we let meekness shape our community. What would happen if we let meekness shape our lives? Let's just ponder for a moment in the quiet.